So today we are watching a video of Zoomer Historian, who I've only seen on your channel when you reacted to him. This is a video about the, actually in German, Reichspogromnacht.
Yes. Now, we call it Kristallnacht in the West, outside
The
of Germany, in the
English-speaking West.
English-speaking world.
Yeah.
Yes, the English-speaking West. We call it Kristallnacht. Now, technically, it's quite insensitive to call it that, but there is
Yes.
no real replacement term for it in English to this
Do you not
day
have
yet. It's
pogroms?
just we do, but pogrom refers to many different events through history.
Fair
This one is
enough.
specifically called Kristallnacht
Fair
because of the
enough.
severity of it. And even though the term Kristallnacht itself is actually a Nazi propaganda term, fun fact, the term Weimar Germany is also a Nazi
Weimar
propaganda term
Republic, to be
invented by Hitler.
specific.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Weimar Republic specifically is a Nazi propaganda term. The book Weimar Years by Frank McDonough explains it really, really well if you want an English book. But yes, yeah, I'll let you continue.
I mean, the Weimar thing is mostly because the Nazis tried to construe that the Republic had ended and the Empire had come. To let it
Yes.
kind of construe that the state has ended before, which is just weird. But
Do you
like,
do
you
you
have
want to
more terms
explain
that
who you are as well? Actually, it's probably a good start as well. We
who
should
I
probably
am,
explain who you are here. Who are you?
who I am. I am Fano.
What are you?
What
How are
I'm a German. Um,
you? That's no laughing matter.
no, that's not funny at all. Um, I should clarify. Like, the main reason we are doing this is because being friends with YouTubers has the stunning effect of trying to do this thing myself. Um,
Ah,
and also seeing it is very weird as a German to see people on the internet glazing problematic parts of our past. Um,
yes. You explained it to me as someone being proud of something that you feel incredibly ashamed for.
yes, it's a bit, you know, it's like peeing your pants at school, and like 10 years later, someone comes around and was like, "You remember when you did that? So cool." Like,
Yeah,
okay, try to forget that part.
yeah. So, um, what's your background as well, like study-wise, just for the peoples? Because everyone knows that I study history and I focus a lot on genocide and
I
Eastern European
study
studies.
I study law and specifically international law.
Yeah, so
And
he's both a German and a law student, so really no laughing matter here.
no, no laughing.
Yes,
Um,
laughing is verboten.
incredibly forbidden. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Um,
Yes, I
but
have
yeah,
heard.
so
Wait. For one person in chat. Yes, I have heard of Babylon Berlin. It is quite big in Germany. It's way bigger outside of Germany.
yeah, it's a great show. I thought the sets on it are amazing.
The set is very close to where I live, actually.
You told me that.
Yeah.
I really like the fact they don't shy away from showing the both sides of the political aisle as well during that era.
I mean, the 20s are
Um,
incredibly interesting from political wise because you can learn so much about like how
oh yeah.
politics works in a country with problems. Um,
Now,
yeah.
now we haven't watched this. We should preface that we have not watched this. Now, this is a 25-minute video, so expect us to be here for about 2 hours. Now, I've got 4 hours until the Formula One race begins, so I've got plenty of time.
I do
Um,
too.
but but so preface a few things. I suspect, first things first, we're going to have the situation of he'll claim that the whole state was working against the Nazis, like in the Weimar era, before before the Nazis took over, which totally ignores the fact that the Weimar Republic was dominated by right-wing judges that explicitly cracked down on left-wing crime. Even like tiny, tiny crimes were cracked down on,
It's
whereas you could quite literally try and overthrow the government and get a slap on the
the
wrist.
whole
I
German
suspect we're going to have a
state
talk about that.
as a continuation onwards from 1871, like after the foundation of the German Empire, was constructed to put down the workers' movement. That is something that
Yes.
Bismarck started, and in Weimar, even after World War One, and even after the SPD quote unquote winning, um, that establishment crawls back to power, and you can see this quite if you I can recommend actually a museum in Munich which is about like the Nazi history in Munich specifically, and in Bavaria specifically, and it shows that like the Wehrmacht was very happy to give the Nazis guns for their raids, like way before they got any power, like in the like 1923 and so on. And
Yes.
this trial that Hitler has, which like effectively gets him trialed in a very, very different part of Germany than he's supposed to, and so on. So, yeah.
Also, thank you, Random Feeling, for following. I am at 299 followers, and that's pretty cool considering I didn't use Twitch until 3 days ago. Now, oh, that's 300. Thank you, Phoenix. That's all. That's cool.
Let me unfollow you.
Oh well, thank you. I'm gonna pin your next comment on one of my videos about the Balkans. I swear, I'll do it on a Russian Navy video too.
Oh god.
But something to note as well is I said this in my last video on this crap. That Germany as itself and the idea of Germany and what I call Germanism, as in like Frankism and stuff,
Mhm.
like I refer to it as being born effectively in 1848. Of course, it exists before that. The idea had to exist for it to be born. But
Yeah.
Germany as a nation state being a product of the revolutions of 1848 across it, which was
Mhm.
then later murdered by Bismarck and Prussia. And that Germany as a whole had 3 brief chances to live as Germany, and that was in 1848, and then it was in the brief period after the First World War, where you have a president who is ruling by decree effectively to save the republic versus a president who was then takes over to rule by decree to destroy the republic,
Yes.
and then finally into what is West Germany and modern Germany, the Buddhist Republic. I refer to that as Germany because the German Empire is not Germany. It's the Prussian Empire that has conquered Germany. It's two very, very
Until
different
World War
things.
II, yeah.
Yes.
And then for a very long period, you have 2 Germanys that are to varying degrees heavily influenced by outside powers, to a
Yes.
degree where they don't really have their own statehood. Like West Germany does, East Germany.
It's questionable up until probably what, 1972, maybe 1974.
So like both of them have treaties in the 50s with their respective powers.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that like even for West Germany, the Allies retained a permanent right to station troops, which is
Sorry if I cough a little bit. I'm getting over COVID.
all good. But like, yeah, it's not the topic of the video. I think we should
Yeah.
move on.
But yes, so when we refer, these are just some base things. So if we refer to certain things, you guys understand. But I'll let you press play while I drink some water.
All right, then let's do this.
Almost everyone will have mentioned Kristallnacht or the Night of Broken Glass, but very little is actually known about the event. It's hardly ever mentioned why the events took place.
Just the best documented thing the Nazis did ever.
It's incredibly well documented.
Like we have the
Kaiser,
protocols of their meetings.
we've got the protocols. Kaiser Wilhelm II went on record saying he was ashamed to be German, and I know what your opinion on the Hohenzollern's is, but like we know.
We also know why it happened.
Yes, we do know why it happened. I'm gonna turn it down a little bit. His voice is nasally and it annoys the shit out of me. Please continue.
Who ordered it, or how it affected the course of history.
Goebbels.
It's usually just discussed.
Wait. Did he say
in a
you don't hear about? Did he say you don't hear about who ordered it?
Yeah, Goebbels.
It's on record. Goebbels is on record saying that he ordered it. Like,
yeah. He actually,
he's very proud of it too.
Like the thing is that I find very funny is the Nazis and the like you can read the protocols of how they discussed it. The Nazis were never actually concerned with the Jews because you have factions that are against it, but not because they care. The thing they think is, so this happens in 38, right? Yeah, must be. Am I wrong? Should be.
It's about that, yeah.
Let me check for a sec. Yeah, 38. Yeah, 9th of November 38, of course. Yeah. That is the same year the Nazis tried to do the euthanization program. The program where they effectively try to mass incarcerate and eliminate people with disabilities, both mental
And
and other. It's
yeah,
gruesome.
it's exceedingly gruesome. In my video on the Holocaust, the unedited version, I have a baby's photo on screen being held by a nurse for about 5 minutes, and then I put the text up under it, and it's basically, this is a small baby who is about 2 months old, I think, and they're quite literally being held by the nurse that then stuck a needle in their arm and euthanized them
Yeah,
because they were born with a slight birth defect. That's how fucked up it is.
yeah, it's incredibly bad. And
And they're proud of it. They were
the
proud of
thing
it.
is, at the time, you realize that the Holocaust could only happen during wartime, because the public wasn't very much unhappy with the Nazi government at that point.
Yes.
Even parts that are considered pro-Nazi were very upset. So the Nazis actually stopped the program until the war started. Which is why some Nazi factions within the government were of the opinion that this will end them. So some were fearful of what might happen when they do this. But then a couple of assassinations and bombings happened. If I remember this correctly, yeah, that's how it happened. And basically, this is why there was no long ongoing plan to do this, but it just kind of was a reaction of the Nazi government to because there was a assassination attempt on Hitler. So yeah, on the 7th of November, there was also the assassination on Ernst von Rahm.
Von Rath? Yeah.
Von Rath. Yeah, von Rath, I think, in Paris, and yeah, that's kind of the reaction that happened. Goebbels had a lot of things wrong with them, spare. Let's continue.
Hopefully, in this video, I can shed some more light on the time period. Hitler had spent years talking about the Jewish people, yet when he came to power, the actual repression against them was so mild that it disappointed some.
Really?
Okay.
Really?
Fano, we're
Mild?
26 seconds in. Fucking hell. Okay, so we have the I can't remember the exact title of the act, but it's the I think it's the restoration
Nürnberger
of the civil service.
Rassengesetze.
Yeah.
It's
Look,
the racial laws of Nuremberg.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the English translations
I
here.
have
That's
no
the hard
idea.
bit because I know in
Nuremberg
German.
racial laws, I guess you could call them. But
Yeah,
like,
but it's the specific act where I talk about this in my video on how the Holocaust happened. It's the law of the restoration of the civil service, where steps are specifically made in that law to exclude Jews from the positions in government and positions of power, and then within 5 years they are banned from the military completely, and all Jews are forced to either have the name Israel or Sarah. They completely dehumanize, so mild. Now, I'm going to talk to you about mild. We're going to do some mild examples in the modern context here. Fano, you and I have just conquered Austria. Isn't that nice? We now own Austria. Now, in Austria, we have decided that every single person who is a Hungarian who lives in Austria needs to go. So we've forced them to be renamed Magyar. We've also removed them from all their jobs. They have no rights anymore. They can't shop in certain areas, and we've put labels on them. Does that sound like mild oppression to you?
oh, there's more, by the way.
Oh,
There's also
there's more, yeah.
there's the Reichsbürgergesetz, which is the Nazis wanted to have a 2-class citizenship thing. So you have citizens, and then you have citizens of the Reich.
Yes.
And only people that are of like German blood or related to German blood shall have political rights, and Jews could only be citizens without political rights. Then you have a law, in German it's Gesetz zum Schutze des deutschen Blutes und der deutschen Ehre, which is effectively trying to make it illegal for quote-unquote Aryans and Jews to marry. So no, it's not mild oppression. Like, it's
very silly to say it's mild. Max, by the way, if you are unaware, I'm a history YouTuber. If one of my mods can pin my YouTube channel to the chat, like, that would be great. So just, for the context, I realized people that may not have seen my channel will pop in because history on Twitch. But yeah, I suppose we should continue. We are 26 seconds
Yeah,
in.
but like the mild oppression thing, like murder and discrimination were going rampant against Jews at this point and any
Yes.
other minority. You have the active boycott of Jewish stores. You have the start, if I'm not mistaken, at this point. Let me check. Aryanization already
Yep.
already started.
What do we call it in English? Is it, this is the beginning of the Volksgemeinschaft in German. I can't remember the name of the translation. You know,
It's
the
People's
evolution
Union,
of the
I
Nazi way of
guess,
life. Yeah,
which makes it
People's Union.
which is a bad translation because it very much is folk is not union, but it's like a people. It's people as an ethnic, like a racial term, kinda.
Yes.
At least the way the Nazis used it, because they only consider the Aryan Germans. I hate to use that term, but that's how they said it. To be Germans and part of the people, while everyone else is an enemy of the people. It's the social Darwinism. But like, he just like we're 20 seconds in, and he has said so much that is just factually incorrect. Ugh.
And this is the danger when it comes to this like genuine Nazi propaganda, which is what we are watching. This is neo-Nazi propaganda. This is 100% neo-Nazi propaganda. But the problem is, it's so easy to lie online, and the lie will genuinely be done so quickly and so subtly that you'll hear it and you won't realize it's a lie. And then all of a sudden that lie is being repeated by X amount of people who see it. And it's taken us 10 minutes to disprove 20 seconds of lies. Do you see the danger in this kind of propaganda?
Yes, I do. By the way, for whether Jews were banned from being butchers, that came at a time where it was basically illegal for them to be anything. So while
Holy
technically
shit, we have 100
true,
viewers.
it's somewhat of a, I mean, it's technically true, but like they were banned from doing anything.
He does not do a lot of USSR history. Me. Oh, the YouTuber me. Yes, I do a lot of USSR history. And that's mostly down to the fact that my degree is in modern history and it's a focus on essentially Slavicist history. It's what you would call a Slavicist. I study mostly Slavic history and genocide itself. I do boats for fun, though.
We should continue.
Yes, we should. We have
Some of the
almost
more
100 viewers. It's hovering. It's great.
radical corners of the party. Hitler had actually quite logically decided that if he was going to separate the Jews from the Germans, he
There's the
wanted it
dickhead.
done without causing a gigantic international uproar.
That is. It's not logically, because the Nazis didn't tend to be logical, but what he describes is somewhat correct in the fact that they slowly made it worse. They didn't
Yes,
start killing day one.
That's that. There's an argument. I can't remember I can't remember it in English, but the argument is basically whether or not the Holocaust was given, and that it was a long-term plan, or that it was an evolution into a mass genocide. Historians cannot agree in academia whether or not it was always the goal of mass genocide, or whether it was
In Germany,
we
that's not a
evolved
question.
into it.
In Germany,
Well, yeah, I know it's not
in
there.
Germany, in Germany, the general consensus is that it was a long-term goal,
Yeah.
to do this while the war was happening.
I
the
sit
war
on the
was
side
long-term
of
planned.
that. Like the war was a guarantee. The war was having to happen. Hitler writes about it regularly. I sit on the side of the fact that it's a bit of both.
Probably.
That the Nazis initially didn't want to have to deal with it, and not because of any humanitarian reasons. I don't think they wanted to have to do genocide because it cost money. Like they wanted an easy win. And then when they realized they couldn't get what they wanted, it was all right. We'll pay the money.
I think it's the way they did it evolved. I think the plan was always there. I think there is a part of them that, for example, thought that they could maybe use like the Russian equivalent to penal colonies, penal.
Yeah, that's
squads.
what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. Like they thought there was an easier way to do it.
But like in the end, they abused the very, very effective German bureaucracy, and
yeah, really effective German bureaucracy.
And also the fact that Germany had probably one of the largest, if not the largest, chemical production sectors in the world, which is disturbing. Let us
Awesome.
move on.
Thank you, Ronan
Not
and
even a
Matthew,
minute.
for following. Oh, come on.
At
Let's
that
let it
rate,
run
we're
for a
gonna
little bit.
be. At that rate, we're gonna be here for a day.
After all, one of his biggest enemies was the foreign press, especially the Jewish-owned ones, and if he made any move too harsh on the Jews, they could quite
Okay.
easily ruin his reputation and make foreign policy an impossible minefield to maneuver.
Am I wrong about that? But didn't like France and Britain not really have Jewish-owned media?
They didn't. That's just into the whole. That's the whole conspiracy
Like-
of the Jews control everything.
like the
That's all that
US?
is.
To a degree, I guess. But like,
I mean, the US to a degree, yeah. Well, okay, no, there is some truth to it in the sense that Zionism is a massive issue in certain echelons of British high society at this point. It's part of the reason that Israel got away with all of it, basically what it did, and had so much support in its early years. And it is an issue in the United States as well, particularly in the United States in terms of government. But to
I
say
mean,
Hitler's biggest enemy is the Jewish press,
but he did think that. That's-
okay, he
To
did.
be
He
fair,
thought that,
Hitler thought that.
but yeah.
He should
Yeah.
clarify that this is what Hitler thinks.
Yeah, like, but this is genuine Nazi conspiracism. Like the fact
Yeah.
he's not clarifying that. He's not clarifying that that this is what Hitler thought. He's saying it's his gospel. He's saying what Hitler believes is gospel, and what the reality is completely different. Because the reality and what Hitler wanted is totally fucking void, as you'd know.
Yes. Yes, it is.
He set about doing this by actually working with Zionist organizations. Zionism,
That is true.
in modern times, is pretty much a nothing
did, yes.
word, much like fascism or racism. However, in this instance, I mean it in the
no.
literal Jewish people.
It's a nothing word because you want it to be a nothing word. Because you want.
Yeah.
I like how he mentions racism as a nothing word. It's like it's because you want it to be a nothing word.
Mhm.
Do I believe that Nazism and racism have been overused to the point for little things that they've lost a lot of their oomph? Absolutely. But it's not a nothing word.
Hey, crazy news from me. The Nazis were racist.
What?
Kinda. Also, did you know the Nazis were Nazis?
No way. No fucking way,
What
dude.
kind of point is this shit?
Oh god.
Also, like, yes, they did somewhat work with Zionists in the beginning because the idea was to deport all German Jews to Madagascar.
Yeah, or to get them to Palestine. Basically, just get them out
Yeah.
and
Oh,
steal
actually,
all their
no.
things while
The,
they
the
left.
Palestine plan changed. You know why? Because he wanted
Go
the
on,
Arabs.
tell them. I know.
He wanted the Arabs as allies.
Yes.
And the Arabs were mad, so which is why you have those like weird Arab leaders out of the 30s and 40s who have letters in their past which glorify the Holocaust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just continue.
For wanting a homeland for the Jews sense. Almost as soon as Hitler came to
No, they did not want a homeland for the Jews. They wanted them to be somewhere else.
power, he was set upon power. He was set upon by various groups of international businessmen, and German goods were boycotted. This is where the infamous Judea declares war on Germany newspaper headline comes from, that is often used out of context. Hitler managed to get some of these boycotts removed by working with the Zionists to establish a plan for the relocation of Germany's Jews, or at least those that would go willingly, to British Palestine. Some, of course, refused to revoke their boycotts no matter what, unless Hitler was removed from office. This Palestine scheme was known as the Havara Agreement. The plan
Okay, I'm just going to move it back for a second because I don't want to look at Fuckwit's face. Yes, Pig, we're covering this again because Fano, as an actual German, wanted to have a platform to actually wanted to have a crack at it and to actually speak as a, an actual German having to deal with this shit. Okay, we're currently on the topic of apparently Hitler was buddy and wanting to help make the state of Israel. So, all right.
As Hitler was removed from office. This Palestine scheme was known as the Havara Agreement. The plan didn't really work to the scale that both sides would have hoped for, but regardless, this was Hitler's primary method of dealing with the problem long term. Of course, in everyday society, there was shops who refused Jews entry and had signs saying Jews not wanted, but this was the case in the United States, or even Great Britain too.
Oh, by the way, wasn't bad because other country also did bad. So, you know,
Yeah, that's
racism
classic
against Jews
whataboutism
cannot
right
be
there.
bad because racism against blacks, we totally are fine with.
Yeah, I do know that pig. So, backstory for kiddies, for those who don't know, this guy was actually outed as being a genuine Nazi propagandist, neo-Nazi propagandist in Britain. Like, as in, we need to get rid of all the brown people is something he's been saying quite a lot. Do you want to know the funnest part is he's so anti-immigration that he's got an immigrant wife or immigrant
I mean,
girlfriend. He
that's
got an
just how
immigrant
you.
girl
That's just
pregnant. I
how
don't
you
know if he
do
married
it.
her.
No, that's just how you
I mean,
do it.
Look, if the AFD has taught me anything, it's that to lead a far-right neo-Nazi party, you need to be a lesbian white person married to
Sri Lankan.
someone from the Sri Lankan, and then live outside of the country you're trying to seize power in.
Yeah, live in Switzerland with a Sri Lankan woman with 2 adopted children, and then fight against gay rights. In Germany.
Yeah. So this guy's like, I mean, if these people didn't have double standards, they'd have none at all.
No, I think the argument here is he hates brown people. So so if it's okay in the US because they hated brown people, then this must be correct as well. You know.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, the Jews aren't white. Remember, that's the whole belief these people have.
Okay, let's just.
Albeit not on the same scale, obviously. This was the situation in 1938, as the events of Kristallnacht neared. Hitler was viewed by some in the party as being too soft, as opposed to too harsh, despite...
That's not true, by the way.
No, it's not.
Like, there were, like... He says by some. He means Goebbels.
Yeah. Yeah, he literally means Goebbels and probably Himmler.
And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it's only Goebbels. Because...
Oh, Himmler's a bit of a
whatever.
bitch. He does whatever,
Yeah.
he did whatever his daddy told him to do.
Let's just continue.
his increasing restrictions on Jews. But the outside world, of course, viewed Hitler's rhetoric against the Jews as abominable. It was this minefield that the Führer had to navigate. Before we begin...
Me speak English, abominable. It's abominable. Learn to speak.
Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. This is a video about both Adolf Hitler's life and also about the Night of Broken Glass.
Here we go.
Both are extremely controversial. I don't need...
No, they are not. They're not controversial. They are frowned upon. It's a
Yeah,
terrible time.
I wouldn't even say I wouldn't even say frowned upon. We know that these are horrific events that occurred because the Nazis wrote everything fucking down.
Also, can I just say the irony of us having to pause every 15 seconds and he then doing a common sense disclaimer?
Yes, you know what we should do?
Hmm?
We should make it like like some kind of sticker or something. I should put it. I should make a T-shirt with common sense disclaimer on it.
Common sense disclaimer: the Nazis were racist.
Yeah, that's how I'll make a TV shirt. A T-shirt. It'll be common sense disclaimer: the Nazis are racist. That'll be my T-shirt. I keep saying TV shirt because I'm reading the chat. But T-shirt, yeah, I'll make a T-shirt that says common sense disclaimer: the Nazis were racist.
Oh fucking
Before I'll put that out for sale in a week or so.
hell.
You'd buy that shirt? I'd buy that shirt.
God, I just press play.
Need to make a huge speech, really, but please just use common sense. This video is purely a work of history. It is not political in any way.
Yes, it is.
Hey, me when I ignore
History
facts,
is politics.
Me when history is politics from yesterday, and yesterday influences today. So history is political. Common sense.
Shape or form, and I will express no opinions of my own. Thank you. Also, this video is part of the largest series on the life of Adolf Hitler. If you'd like to start from the start, then the playlist is linked down below, and also displayed front and center on my channel homepage. The video can just as easily be viewed on its own, however. And finally, a huge thank you to my Patreon.
Oh, let's look at those.
I just want to point out the logo he's chosen for his patrons, but he's not political.
Totally normal. No, I've seen that thing before. It hangs above a courtroom in Germany. There
Oh,
used to be
that.
something else in the middle. I can't remember. Um, like, I love that he has a patron who's called "It's Okay to Be a Nationalist."
The worst bit is it's fine to be a nationalist. Like, you meet a
Yeah, but
Scottish
not,
nationalist,
but
they're
not.
chill as fuck, but we know what he means.
Yeah, but like, you know what that dude means.
That's the problem. Like, they ruin, like, oh, yes,
To be fair,
whatever.
some of the names are bangers. Firefly Enterprise is a good name.
That's a good name, yeah, that's a solid name. Someone called Wonderwaffer, he still lives in his mum's basement.
Of course. 1 second. I need to do manly things and help someone with a drill.
You're doing manly things?
Yeah, I need to help the fiance with a drill. I'll keep that in the videos to show that I'm a real man.
Yes. Well, no, you're not a real man because you don't agree with everything that Zoomer Historian
Oh, so
says.
my
You've
bad.
traded your manliness, remember?
My bad. I'm not angry at other people for being different. My bad.
Yeah, you've got to yell at people to be different to be a real
True.
man.
Someone in chat said the correct thing. What's the third name supporter? He's called Sigma, which is also just his German name, the way he has it. Sigma.
Oh no, the third last one.
Oh. Sümükülük Böcek. There you go. Let's move on.
Subscribe
I
Star
wonder
and
if he's Turkish.
YouTube members
No,
for their constant
Greek.
support. My videos are not monetized immediately and have to undergo a manual
No.
review process.
What?
Whilst every video does indeed get monetized eventually, it usually takes
No,
a
it
few
doesn't.
days to a week.
I
As a
hope
result,
not.
the vast majority of my
It
income
doesn't. I
comes
can
from the
guarantee
kind
you it
donations
doesn't.
that you guys provide on these websites. I cannot thank you enough, as this is my full-time job. If you're new or even a regular viewer and you
Can we
enjoy
just
my
pause for a
content,
second?
want to join our Discord,
Yes.
If all of those patrons are giving, now I've actually gone and had a little look at his subscribe stuff. I've also had a look in his Telegram channels, and I've had a look in a few other forums where he's active. There have been some choice words said about me, and I'm loving it. It's so funny. Now, that's not enough patrons to learn a living. And so he has 195,000 subscribers, and he was bragging in his Telegram the other day that someone had gifted him 5,000 bot subs to boost him. I have 90,000. And my channel's been around for a year less than his in terms of my uploads.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got 500,000 more views than me. That's it. And what I'm earning on YouTube is enough through budgeting. And I have probably 3 or 4 times the patrons that he's got there that help, make it work for me.
What I wonder.
So where's the money coming from, mate? Where's the money coming from if this is your full-time job? Where is the money coming from?
I don't believe this is
I'll
his
leave that
full-time
question
job.
there. Well, I don't believe a thing he says, but if this is his full-time job, where are you getting the money, bud?
I mean, from people called Jagdkampf, which is totally not a Japanese dude that thinks the Nazis were really cool.
our weekly Hearts of Iron 4 games, or even our Minecraft
Of course,
server,
they play Hearts of
then
Iron
please
4.
do consider
You know
joining
what we
up
should-
on one of the links
Fano.
in the description.
Yes.
We should stream Communist Germany Hoi 4 co-op again, and we'll do it. We'd have fun with that.
Yeah.
No, continue.
Even the $2 tier helps immensely. Thank you.
Ugh.
Oh, is that the Munich conference?
1938 was a year
Eric
of
is not
Hitler's
even a
Germany
good
jumping from
propaganda song.
crisis to crisis. Early in the year,
Erica is quite the bad songs in general. There's one good Erica version that's of the little Japanese girl hitting the table.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
That's
the
a great
best
one.
German. The best German World War II propaganda song is Schwarzbraun ist die Haselnuss. And I will die on this hill.
They're all bad. The last
No,
good
they're all
propaganda
bad, but,
song we made is Preußen Gloria.
Preußen Gloria is great. No, Hobbs, the apartheid South Africans adopted Erica as their marching song after the Second World War. I wonder why. Oh, Lily Marlene's good too, yeah. Anyway, continue.
I'm sorry, Bobby.
the Blomberg-Fritsch affair ended with Hitler
Verstehe, was du
shuffling the
meinst.
old conservatives out of his government and replacing them with newer faces. In February and March, the Anschluss dominated the world's news headlines. Hitler managed to make his way through both.
Do you want to know how I can tell you that he's not monetized? Because he's using British Pathé, and they will never let you get monetized if you use them.
events relatively untouched. The latter did show Hitler's willingness to occupy foreign nations, however, regardless of the fact that it was the Austrians themselves who wanted the invasion. The peace didn't
No, they did not. They had no choice.
The peace didn't last for long.
The problem with Austria is we know that they rigged the election.
Yeah,
What
we know
is
it's rigged.
true is that the Austrian army did not resist. And
Yes.
that there is a significant portion of the Austrian establishment at the time and of the population that did want the countries to join. And then there is a significant part of the population that didn't mind joining with Germany, but minded the Nazis. Which is why
Yes,
they probably actually lost the election. But
Yeah,
after
this
this
is the thing.
experience, Austrian nationalism becomes a real thing. Because
Yes.
from this day onwards, Austria is really strong to be its own, like really proud to be its own thing.
But this is the thing about it, like there is no way to tell, and the reason I said no, they didn't, is because we don't know the truth, because that we know that election or that vote to join Germany was so rigged it's not even funny.
Mm-hmm.
So like you can't say the
No,
Austrians
I
were
mean,
pro joining Germany because like no, in terms of like what he's saying here, you can't say that the Austrians were pro Nazi because we don't know. We know part of them were, and part of the government was, but still.
You say was so rigged. I'll tell you this much: they just straight up lied about the result. Like it's not
yeah.
like Russia rigged, where they like ballot dump, like where they just push ballots, hundreds of them in a part of the country where not that many people vote, into the ballot box. No. They just lied. They just made up the number.
A few months later, the world was rocked by the Sudeten crisis. At points, Europe was within hours of war breaking out, but thanks to Neville Chamberlain, the nations of Europe were saved from such a fate. Germans were being massacred in the Sudetenland, and after Beneš, the president of Czechoslovakia, tried to bait Hitler into mobilizing his army and creating a fake scandal, Hitler...
What? Is he trying to say that that was a preemptive strike?
I believe he is. I believe he's using the same justification that Putin uses for Ukraine right now. I shit you not. I think it's the same.
He does know that when the Nazis took Sudetenland, right? That Germans in those regions attacked Czech authorities, right? He does know that.
No, he flat out said the Czechs were massacring the German minority.
There was a level of discrimination, not like that.
Yes.
The real genocide against the Germans happened way later.
Put his foot down. In the end, the Sudetenland was handed over to Germany, and Beneš ran off with his tail between his legs, where he would continue to shill for a war with Germany, in collaboration with other paid warmongers like Winston Churchill and Duff Cooper.
He just...
my favorite part about this is Churchill doesn't even take over the prime ministership in Britain until after Norway, during the Norwegian, like just after the Norwegian campaign, I'm pretty sure it is, just before Belgium and France. So like, that's a fair way into the war. Like a lot of shit's happened by that point. Like this is like Churchill taking over is years away from this point.
Yeah, I'm so happy that I can censor all the swastikas.
The Germans of the same international reputation had not been. The warmongers, chief among them...
How is Winston Churchill a warmonger?
Well, Churchill was flat out saying from the moment Hitler took power that we should just invade Germany and overthrow him. Like Churchill never shied away from that, and that's one of his most, in my opinion, one of Churchill's best ever acts was basically being anti-Hitler from the start. He was basically, you can never make a deal with this man. We need to overthrow him from the start. Like he was totally down in the 30s to sail battleships up into Kiel, bombard and then send an military unit and bombard its way to Berlin to kill him. He was totally chill with that. He wanted him gone from the start.
That's just...
Churchill began to
Yeah.
spin the Sudeten crisis as a first step in Germany's path to world domination. Sadly, people genuinely
was.
began to believe that Hitler, incorporating 3 million Germans into the nation of Germany,
That was not just Germans, you.
was the beginning of a larger conquest, a major triumph.
Because it was.
Yes.
Because they conquered Austria before. Like, you
Yes.
can't say what you want about Austria. That was not a peaceful, like, referendum and then Anschluss. No, what it was a military invasion followed by a referendum, kind of akin to what happened with Crimea in 2014, which is has nothing to, like, in international law. I don't know if you know this. Hello, I have studied international law. Every annexation by force is illegal, including this one, because it is by
What?
force. Did you know that even the Sudeten, like the Munich conference that gave the Sudetenland to Germany, was full on illegal because, hear me out, France and Britain did not have the authority to give that land.
No way. You mean to tell me that you can't just invade people and because you want to?
I know you know your history. People seem to not.
No, I'm being completely sarcastic because
I know.
apparently people don't fucking understand it. Like,
I
it's
know.
so stupid that people don't understand it.
I know, which is why, in 1992, Germany had to formally agree to renouncing the eastern territories of Germany, because the Allies couldn't give that away.
Yes.
Was slowly but surely being spun into a capitulation to Hitler. Chamberlain's moral action of saving the
was.
British people from war was starting to be viewed as cowardice. This is the false
was.
narrative that remains to this day. Regardless, this false narrative was now the reality in part of the public mind, and it was the situation that Hitler had to reckon with.
I just want to point out, if the Allies had gone to war with Germany in 1938, they would have absolutely rocked Hitler's shit all the
They
way
should
back to
have won
Berlin.
in 39 as well.
What we should have done is we should have marched into Germany in
Yes.
1936 over the Rhineland, but that's a whole other thing. Fucking here we go.
But to be fair, I get that, because invading the Rhineland during the Black Friday crisis,
Yeah.
was the reason why Hitler became as strong as he did.
Yes, it was.
So I think the fear was in 36, there was kind of the belief democracy was not dead to the point of no return, where the German people couldn't help themselves. So I think the idea was that in 36, if they intervene, that they might make him a lot stronger than he is. He's about to.
In hindsight, it would have been. In hindsight, it would have been better if we'd have just.
Yeah, but hindsight is 20/20, right?
It is, yeah.
I get why.
After these
not.
crises, particularly the Austrian one, there was thousands and thousands of Jews who wanted to leave the country, as Hitler slowly took a tougher and tougher line to be rid of them, and the Germans were more than happy to accommodate.
Look, here's the actual quote.
Yeah, I know.
The problem was, as was already an issue with the rest of the Jews in Germany, nobody wanted them. The Brits would only accept so many in British.
That is actually a true fact. That is a massive crime
Yes.
of the international community. Especially, I want to point out a country that kind of says they had nothing to do with this and were totally peaceful, Switzerland, who had people being captured at their border and then being brought to camps. So this is something where every country in Europe and in the world should look at themselves and realize what they have done, because people should have known.
It was very obvious what was coming in this
Yeah.
set, and
Especially at this time, like in 35, 36, 37.
Palestine. The French wanted nothing to do with the matter. In fact, the French foreign minister had begged Ribbentrop not to flood France with German Jews, as he said they already had enough, and they were even considering Madagascar for the purpose of getting rid of them. The new Czech government had been replaced
That's
by
a bit too
moderates,
much.
as opposed to Benez's anti-Hitler extremists, and the nation took a pro.
They were not extremists. Hitler flat out threatened them with invasion multiple times. There's the speech I don't, he seems to not know it. There's a Hitler speech in the German Reichstag, in the German parliament at the time, where he made fun of Wilson asking him to not invade any more countries after Austria.
Yeah.
And he straight out laughs. Which, like,
Yeah.
it's not extremist to have, like, a strong stance. If you can blame someone for being quite foreign policy stupid at the time, it's the Polish, who took part of Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, it
and
was the
did not
dumbest thing the
help
Poles
them.
could have done.
They should have helped them. Like, the biggest victims of let's just put it right. The biggest victim of other country of Germany is literally Czechoslovakia, because they were sold out by the French and the British. The Polish didn't help them, and the rest of Eastern Europe watched.
I could tell you for a fact, if Poland and the Czechs and the Romanians had stood up together in 38, it would have forced France and Britain's hand. It absolutely would have. And they would have won. Like,
The
yeah.
problem, the
Anyway.
problem, what you can learn from Hitler and his doings in within Germany and outside of Germany, this foreign policy is you need to check the bully.
Yes. The
If
bully
you
needs to be stopped because the bully will keep going.
Take threats seriously. That's what I think you can see with Russia today, is the fact for a long, long time we had this it's only Russia, whatever, stance to it.
Yeah.
While they were attacking Georgia, while they were heavily influencing Belarus, while they tried to overtake Moldova. So
the thing is, as of today as well, Putin started the steps towards the absorption of Abkhazia and of South Ossetia. So the moment the war in Ukraine ends, they're going straight to Georgia.
Oh, that was ethnic cleansing already, so that region basically doesn't have any Georgians left anyway.
No, it doesn't. And neither does the Donbass in the pre-war occupied territories. The Ukrainians have been completely expelled there. So, and it's the same.
Yeah.
The arguments Putin has made for that is exactly the same as what Mr. Zoom Zoom dickhead here is making about Hitler.
Yep. Let's move on.
German line. In fact, they were already effectively begging Germany for protection from Hungary, who was eager to avenge Trianon. The Czechs weren't big fans of the Jews anyway, but now with Beneš gone as a restraining factor.
I just want to point out the Czechs would have absolutely fucking annihilated Hungary if Hungary went to war with them.
Hungary at the time was super weak.
They had no.
Hungary had just lost a war to Romania. For context.
They were not begging. They were not begging for help. Hungary would have absolutely had its shit rocked if it started something.
Czechoslovakia had one of the strongest militaries in Eastern Europe at the time.
Random feeling, yes. A lot of my content is skewed for people who don't have a basis in knowledge of certain parts of history. If I'm going deeper into something, I usually recommend a pre-video for it. But like, for example, in the History of Ukraine series right now, I'm working up towards a video on the Holocaust in Ukraine, and I've just released a video on how the Holocaust happened to help lead into that. So I do try and provide the whole bit of history. It's not just like you have to have a certain base level of knowledge to be there. So yeah.
No, you can just watch them. They're quite easygoing. Yeah,
that's the idea. Yeah, let's continue.
Oh, we both pressed play at the same time.
For the matter at all, they were happy to toe the German line and impose anti-Jewish restrictions. In some cases, they were even more eager than the Germans and began to deport these Jews by the thousands. Again, the problem was where to put them. The obvious answer for the place to put all these Jews was Poland, the nation with the most Jews in Europe by far. The issue again was that the Polish government was incredibly anti-Semitic themselves and shuddered at the thought of foul.
What he's saying, yes, they were anti-Semitic, not to that degree.
Is he trying to say that Germany wasn't anti-Semitic?
I think his argument is being that all other countries were anti-Semitic, so what Germany was doing was actually not that bad, which is a very, very strange argument to be making. I don't really get that. What I will say is, like, out of those countries you see there, like, you take Germany and then you take some others, the only country probably almost as bad. No, I'm not too sure about it, so I'll not say it. But like the obvious answer is Poland, because huh? Okay. Like,
It's
Also, why are we
yeah.
talking about why are we talking about the Czech crisis, Czechoslovakian crisis, when we're talking about Kristallnacht?
I think it's because Kristallnacht is completely indefensible, and he's trying to like make a huge distraction here to go, oh look, this, and this. It's totally not linked. Look, they had no choice. The woe is them. They were forced into this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's coming.
That's
Anyway,
random.
continue.
Sure.
Thousands more Jews being pumped into the nation. Ambassador Joseph Lipski of Poland had even said directly to Hitler that if he somehow managed to solve the Jewish problem in Europe, then the Poles would build a statue of Hitler in Warsaw. In March 1938, the Poles quickly passed a law to prevent the influx of Jews that would inevitably come from Vienna, which housed thousands of Polish Jews. These Jews were stripped of their Polish citizenship rights. After the Munich
Thank you for
Agreement,
the
the
bits.
Poles panicked even more, and they immediately implemented harsher restrictions on Jewish repatriation.
Yes, that word.
They
that
wanted
name. Thank you,
absolutely
though.
nothing to do with the issue, despite an overwhelming amount of the Jews being Polish Jews. The date of 31st of October was given. After that, there would be no more Polish Jews crossing back into Poland, and as a result, the last days of October were an absolute frenzy of activity on the Polish-German border. The Germans themselves were more than happy to take advantage of the deadline. They cancelled 12,000 Polish Jews' residence permits in the country, and amidst all the chaos, they sent trainloads of these Jews across the border before the Poles could figure out what on earth was going on. The Poles refused the Jews, and they ended up living a horrible refugee existence on the border of the two nations, where they relied on the Red Cross to survive.
Okay, so what effectively happened in that situation is because of Poland became a more nationalist country, with the more other nations in Eastern Europe got invaded. But also did not help before was the war between Ukraine and Poland, and the war with the Soviet Union that also happened, obviously.
Most people don't realize that Eastern Europe basically remained at war for another like almost decade after the First World War compared to Western Europe.
The nationalist elements, which were very popular because of the German threat, also happened to be anti-Semitic, which is where those anti-Semitic policies come from. What this just shows us is that countries trend to be very fast on the no more migrants thing without thinking about the morality behind it. Just, it's uncomfortable for me, no more people, please. Right? Which...
We've been going for an hour, and I just want to point out we're at 8 minutes out of 25.
I mean, yeah. Are you surprised?
I mean, I knew it'd be bad, but fuck, my expectations were low, but holy fuck.
Hey, you know what I want to say? I want to give a Zuma historian credit. I don't think he found the picture himself, but hey, hear me out. That picture, right, is from the German Federal Archives. First good source. Good job.
I'm guessing he just hit YouTube.
He's probably on Wikipedia.
On one of these trains were 484 Polish Jews from Hanover. Most important among them was Mr. and Mrs. Greenspan. And
oh god, that's what he's doing.
Moved to Germany in 1911.
I think this is the one that killed the diplomat in
I just
Paris.
picked up on it. Yeah.
And there they had
I just picked up on what he's doing.
Kristallnacht, obviously Polish fault. Good job, bro. Oh, fuck. That is what he's doing?
I think that's what he's doing, dude. Like,
Herschel Greenspan was to become a name that would go down in history, but for now, he was a nobody. His parents had wanted him to go to Palestine, however, he was told that he was too young and had to wait a year. Instead, it was decided that Herschel should go and stay in Paris with his aunt and uncle. In September 1936, he illegally entered France through Belgium. During the following 2 years, he lived amongst other Eastern Jews in a Paris enclave where Yiddish was spoken. He learned barely a word of French over his 2 years there, and rarely met Frenchmen.
Because...
we know what he's doing here, right?
Yeah, he's saying he was a bad migrant.
It's so obvious. It's so obvious what he's doing right now.
My face is blocking the timestamp? I'm sorry.
Honestly, you guys can deal with the lack of seeing the timestamp. It will help your mentality not knowing how little we're through this.
His time in Paris somewhat mirrored Hitler's
Like, is he really trying to construe this as a reaction on... Oh, I know what he's
Migrants,
doing.
I think.
This whole thing is about the racial riots in Britain.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Jewish question, you're right.
Wow.
But I think this is linked to the racial riots in Britain.
Wow.
What date did this video come out? Can you check what date this video came out versus the racial riots in Britain?
Wait, yeah, I can. One sec. I'll check.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100%. Can the Jew ever be naturalized? The Jewish question, but I think this is trying to draw a parallel to the modern
25th
European.
of September 2023. When we're like...
So this is before it. I think is it before it.
Should
I mean,
be, but I think Britain had more than one, so...
Yeah. Actually, give me 1 second. I need to check something. What date did you just say?
25th of September.
23?
23, yeah. It's before.
No, I've got another thing.
The UK riots are in 2024 in August. So like half a year later.
I need a timeline for a certain event. Give me 1 moment.
I'm gonna read chat. But yeah, Laserbeak is right. This is the Jewish question. But it's also the migrant in foreign country not learning the language committing a crime trope. Which therefore, you know, like... Also, can anyone blame anyone for not learning French?
You speak French, don't you?
Je peux parler un peu de français, oui.
Baguette, yes.
Just said I can speak a little French. Probably with a horrible accent.
I mean, you are German, so there is that.
Wow. Because my German accent in English is so bad.
Just checking something.
Okay.
What date was this again, sorry?
25th of September 2023.
September, okay.
At least he didn't upload it on the day. It's also weird. He's like 2 months early. It's so random. Like I would get making that video in December, right? Like after like you remember that it exists.
I believe there was something that happened in the UK in the news around that date. I don't know if it was to do with the Rotherham scandal or whether it was to do with...
Like, just...
Actually... Might be cricket related.
Oh, you mean the cricket
I
riots?
shit you not, it might be the cricket riots. Because I know there was racial tension between Indians and Pakistanis in the United Kingdom in 2023, a few months before this would have come out, and it basically boiled down to in right-wing news that these immigrants can never become English, and the fighting started between these two migrant groups because the Pakistanis were mocking the Indians because Australia just kicked the shit out of them in the World Test Championship. So this might be vaguely inspired by news from the Rotherham era. It might be inspired by that. It might be inspired by something, but I'm pretty sure there were some significant racial issues in Europe at this time. There was also a massive migrant push from Belarus into Poland at this time when this came out. So it could be linked to that. That's what I was checking, the dates around that. There was a massive issue in Premiership at the time.
Well, let's continue.
Vienna. He was a wanderer, and instead of an artist, he was an inspiring poet. As he wasn't a legal resident of France, he couldn't study, and as a result, his life went nowhere. With no clear path to achieving anything, he quickly became depressed and irritable. He refused to get a job, and his aunt and uncle described him as a useless drain on their resources.
He refused to get a job too. Like, come on.
On top of this, he was well known for his fiery temper and was quick to respond to verbal anti-Semitism with his fists. And due to his upbringing in Jewish schools, he was far more Jewish than his parents had been, even for Eastern Jewish standards.
What does this
Oh
mean?
no. Oh no!
Oh, he
I've
has
just
the
seen one the image
Nuremberg.
on.
He has the
Yeah, here we
Nuremberg
go.
laws open. Hmm. He.
Okay.
This is just real racism here. You know, like
He's just gone full racist. Like
this
fucking
is
hell.
full racism.
Yeah,
Like,
there we go. From I Love Democracy, Tommy Robertson had put out a documentary earlier that year.
no.
Just
Do,
before
do you
this
know?
came
Do
out.
you know what you like? For the people, and maybe I need to explain this. You know that this is
Yeah.
like showing who can marry and who is a Jew and who's like mixed and who's full Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Like like this whole thing explains who can marry whom. Like, and who can only marry with extra allowance and what is forbidden. Like,
Yeah.
As a standards. As a result, he made the Jewish cause in Germany his own, and the anti-Jewish sentiment there was
The
driving
Jewish
him mad.
cause in
To
Germany,
make
huh?
matters worse, in late 1938, the French police were actually looking for him in order to deport him, given that he was an illegal immigrant after all. To those around him, he would rant and rave about the Jewish.
you mean the French police in 38? Do you mean the collaboration police? You know the one that later realized Algerians?
Yep.
Jewish situation in Germany, and he was essentially a loose cannon waiting to explode. He had nothing, and he was going nowhere with nothing to live for. All he had left was his family back in Germany, whom
You know what I love about this? That he makes it sound like his fault.
Yeah.
He got pushed out of his country, right? Under terrible anti-Semitism, then had anger issues because of it and reacted to it with violence. Crazy for a young man, I know. Didn't feel like he wanted to integrate into a country that he never wanted to move to. Didn't find a job. Didn't feel like doing anything and was radicalized. Whoa, I think it's his fault. Personally, absolutely his
Definitely
fault.
his fault.
Peterson
100%.
should
No questions.
Peterson should tell him to like just pick himself up.
he missed so much and would frequently talk about. On November the 3rd, Greenspan received a letter from his sister, and
Maybe
it
he
was
just
here
needs to
that
pick
he
himself
learned
up
of
by
his
his
parents and
bootstraps.
sister's demeaning
Yeah.
repatriation to Poland. Herschel immediately tried to shake his uncle down for money, and after wild protests, he either gave in or was robbed for 300 francs by his nephew, who then walked out. 4 days
I love that. Oy vey, he's stealing money, guys. We know
4 days
it's
later,
obvious. Like he's going for the Jewish money
From
stereotype right
his
there. Good
uncle.
job, mate. Yeah.
on the 7th of November, he turned up at the German embassy, seeking revenge. At 9:45 a.m., he told the receptionist that he was a German resident with important intelligence that he wanted to give to the most senior diplomat available. Only the second most senior official in the building, Ernst von Raff, was available to meet him. Herschel had
It's, by the way, called von Rath. TH in German is not Rath. The TH doesn't exist in German. Just, maybe think.
actually walked past German Ambassador von Welzek on his way in, who was leaving for his daily walk. Herschel walked into Raff's office and was asked to provide the document he claimed to possess. Instead, Herschel pulled out a gun and shot Raff 5 times, shouting, quote, "You're a filthy Bosch. In the name of 12,000 persecuted Jews, here is the document," end quote.
No.
Oh
Can I
God,
pause?
he's playing this.
Can I pause? Wait. Just 1 second. What? Me genocidal behavior has terrorism consequences. What the fuck?
I just wanna say something to anyone who's complaining about like the death of people and the assassination of neo-Nazis and genuine Nazis who helped organize the Holocaust. Womp womp.
Like, sorry, but are we actually thinking this is bad? Someone got
Yes,
radicalized
apparently.
because of an illegal occupation and deportation.
I just want to
But,
point
like,
out he's
this also
playing
worked.
he's playing upbeat. He's playing upbeat Nazi propaganda
Yeah,
music as he brings up
Another
Kristallnacht.
point. I just want to clarify. This worked. This assassination worked because his last name is Herschel, which is a super German name.
Yeah.
Because, hear me out, he was a German. Like, he spoke German. He didn't just speak Yiddish. He wasn't just a full-on, completely out of society pushed Jew. He just didn't feel like learning French. Which, as a German being deported to France, I kinda get.
I mean, I don't want to learn French, and I speak English. I mean, I know a
Yeah.
little bit of French. For if I'm there, I can pick up languages when I'm in a country. But like, I don't want to learn French. If I was forcefully deported out of my country to France, I probably wouldn't want to learn French. To be honest, I'd want to go home.
I wanna say to Bobby Duke, I give you womp womp in German. Da-dum.
Da-dum.
Da-dum. It's this, I don't know where this. I think this comes from the like Windows USB unplug sound.
Thank waste type. I'm French. Honestly, I don't want to speak French when I have to. See, the problem I have with French is
Understandable.
not the fact that it's a nice sounding language. The problem I have with your language is the way you say numbers.
No,
The way the French say numbers
I have
is unholy.
I have a problem with like when I speak French, my nose turns to go up.
Oh, mine does that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I get somewhat more arrogant and think I should have a colonial empire. So
I mean, you already do. The French Shadow Empire exists. Come on, we know
okay,
that.
fair enough. Let's move on. Ah yes, very upbeat. Look how happy they are.
Herschel did not attempt to evade the police, and he cried to them, quote, "Being a Jew is not a crime. I am not a dog. I have a right to live, and the Jewish people have a right to exist on this earth. Wherever I have been, I have been chased like an animal."
Yeah,
end
yes.
quote. The truth was, however, that Herschel had just killed a random, completely innocent man.
1 second.
Let's just bring up his crime.
Wait 1 sec. Let me Ernst von Rath. Yeah, he was a Nazi. What?
What?
Was a member of the Nazi Party and German nobility. No.
What did the Nazi Party do to Jews?
Oh, by the way, no, 1 second. When did you think did he join the Nazi Party?
Oh, he must have just joined. It must have just been a formality. Surely he's an innocent man, right?
In 32.
No, that doesn't sound right. That would mean
32.
he's an actual Nazi.
April of 33, he became member of the SA.
No, that can't be true. That would mean he actually believes in, getting rid of all the Jews and the.
Let me just give you a quote of the Wikipedia page, which is linked. Let's see what's the source. Oh yeah, that's an actual book. Sad. Regarding the Jewish question, Rath expressed regret that the German Jews had to suffer, but argued that anti-Semitic laws were necessary to allow the Volksgemeinschaft to flourish. That dude is
so people.
Yeah.
For the two people who will watch this VOD and then complain that you used Wikipedia, then that exact quote is also written out in full by Mark Mazauer in his fantastic book on the topic, along with Ian Kershaw's
I can get other sources. For example, the German Historical Museum.
I just gave.
No.
Yeah,
I know.
I just gave them
let's
to
do
shut
this.
them up.
Let's do this. He was very, very happy to
Thank you,
serve.
Muhammad, for following. 310 followers now. We're getting closer to my goal of 500.
You know what's the best part about Rath? He was in India, and he had to leave India because of stomach issues.
Little bitch couldn't handle curry.
Yeah.
Hello, cat.
I mean, crazy.
Cat of everything. What do you have to say about the assassination of Ernst von Rath? He squeaked. Okay, the cat responded with squeaking. Hello. Yeah, sorry, I got distracted by patting
By the way,
cat. What were we doing?
For context, he was shot on the 7th, right? On the 9th of November was always very heavily celebrated in Germany, for that is the day where in 1923 the Nazis attempted to coup. So there's that.
The Munich Putsch.
So let's continue.
Simply because he was German. In no way was this going to make things better.
No, not simply because he was German. He was an SA member and diplomat for the German.
Only worse. The victim, in fact, was under investigation by the Gestapo and wasn't even anti-Semitic. Rath died of his
He was anti-Semitic.
injuries 2 days later on the 9th of November, the 15th anniversary of the most important date in Germany, the Beer Hall Putsch. Hitler and all the others were gathered in Munich for the year.
He's not wrong. The 9th of November is one of the most important dates in German history. It's probably the most important, but not because of 1923, but because of the 9th of November 89 and 17 and 48.
daily services
yeah.
when they got the news. Herschel couldn't have possibly asked for worse timing. Patriotic feeling was at a maximum, and the German people were never going to be in a position to tolerate such a targeted attack.
Small adjustment. The Nazi Party, and especially Hitler and Goebbels, heavily pushed propaganda around this. They made a martyr out of Rat. Like, legit.
Yes.
Like, they
yeah.
sent von Weizsäcker, like, this Staatssekretär, like, the state secretary, to pick him up. And, like, this was made a huge fuss about. Like, it's not just...
They went out of their way,
It's not a natural
make him
organization of the people.
Reaction was spontaneous.
What they did here, in terms of how much of a martyr they made him, when Admiral Nelson, the Admiral of the Royal Navy who won the Battle of Trafalgar, died, he instantly was elevated to basically British god in history. Nelson is almost a holy figure in British military history, and you can understand why. Some of the shit that man pulled off is insane. That's the kind of level that the Nazis were in lauding this person's death. They turned him into almost an Admiral Nelson style figure.
Also,
attempted to for Germany. That's how crazy.
Also, what a thing that we should say about the assassin as well, because he didn't really put much emphasis on this. They killed his parents.
Yes.
Like, the Nazis killed his parents. Just,
yeah.
And specifics about this whole thing are somewhat, like, blurry because the Nazis try to hide a lot of it. There are already on the 7th small, like, programs. And the German National News Bureau, which is like a propaganda thing that Goebbels controls at the time, pushed that every newspaper shall have it on the front page in Germany.
Yes.
So yeah.
And immediate. Within hours, synagogues were on fire across Germany. In fact, such events were occurring all over Germany before the Fuhrer even received the news. Here, he ordered that no counter-protests should be arranged, and he was informed that the Munich police were already cracking down on...
Also, they made it look like Hitler only knew on the 9th of November, which is heavily disputed. So,
are you really trying to say that Hitler tried to stop Oh my god, he's going to say Hitler tried to stop Kristallnacht.
He might try. The thing is, Hitler didn't hold a speech. Then Goebbels came out and in the evening, held a very, very anti-Semitic speech. I don't think we have time to go into that. And after that, the SD and the SA and party publicly asked for destruction of synagogues and Jewish stores, and the police and the Gestapo get the official order to not intervene.
Huge anti-Jewish demonstrations. Goebbels
this was only about Jews. They didn't want to prosecute foreigners in the official orders, and they tried to protect the neighboring buildings of synagogues, and they wanted to prohibit looting. So they only wanted destruction. And the reason why they didn't want looting is, do you know history?
I do, but tell the chat.
Because they wanted to loot it themselves.
The hand.
What,
who was
you mean
currently
to
in
tell me that
disgrace
they were wanting to loot?
Yeah, they wanted the Jewish property.
Wanted to loot?
No crazy, way. I know. Crazy.
With Hitler over his high-profile cheating scandal had a bright idea to get back into Hitler's good books. The greatest public speaker Germany had, the very face of the public regime, made the pogroms his own cause. He told party officials to organize and fan the flames of the current spontaneous demonstrations. The SA was his vehicle for doing so, and plainclothed men quickly began making things worse, whilst also trying to make it seem as if the party was not responsible. He would frequently talk of the Gauleiters getting cold feet, but he was proud of the SA, that they simply went ahead and began smashing up Jewish businesses and synagogues.
Okay, that makes it sound that it wasn't planned. No, they did order
what he's
them.
What he's doing here is the same as what he did in the Barbarossa video. It was never Hitler. Hitler did nothing wrong. It was all the people under him. First it was Himmler, now it's Goebbels.
I mean,
Yeah.
Just
If
for
you think
context
Hitler
too.
wasn't if you think Hitler wasn't at the core of this, you need mental help.
Yeah. Also, like, you know who got arrested as a consequence of this?
Do tell.
30,000 Jews.
Wow.
Because obviously it's their fault.
Yeah, right.
He even ordered particular synagogues in his own district of Berlin to be smashed. An action report by the leader of the SA group Nordmark read, quote, at about 10 p.m.
They ordered all to be smashed.
on November 10 p.m. on November the 9th, the need for the operation was put to a number of Gauleiters assembled in
Also, sorry, 1 second. I hate how he uses language. They weren't ordered to be smashed. The word they used is zerstören, Zerstörung, which is destruction, destroy. Not smashed. It's destroy.
Munich hotel Schottenhamel by an anonymous member of the Nazi Party's Reichsleitung. I thereupon volunteered the services of my SA group Nordmark to the Gauleiter Hinrich Loss. At about 10:30 p.m., he telephoned his chief of staff in Kiel. A Jew has fired a shot. A German diplomat is dead. There are wholly superfluous places of congregation in Friedrichstadt, Kiel, and Lübeck, and these people are still trading in shops in our midst. We don't need either the one or the other. There's to be no plundering, nor any manhandling. Foreign Jews are not to be molested. If there's any resistance, use your firearms. The whole operation is to be in plain clothes, and is to be over by 5 a.m. End quote. It's important to remember that the Third Reich isn't as streamlined as one might imagine. The reality was that there were several smaller competing groups. Himmler had his SS, Goering had his industrialists, Goebbels had his propaganda network, and Bormann controlled the circle around Hitler, just to name a few.
And who did they all report to?
Themselves.
Bet he's not going to say. Yeah, I bet he's not going to say who they all followed.
No. You know what the word Führer means? In English?
No, I'm aware, but go on. Yes, go on.
It means leader. This doesn't make a lot of sense.
You
It's
mean
almost
to tell me
like
that a
they
leader led different groups of people in a government?
It's also like that it was a very personalized, like, yeah, they kind of started out as a party state, but they kind of didn't stay that way. Let's
Edward
move on.
Scissorhands. Wow, right? Isn't that insane? Yeah, anyway, continue.
Name a few. Most of these men didn't like each other and would often pursue opposing aims, in which
That is
Hitler
true.
was sometimes kept in the dark. This
And
time,
it's hilarious.
however, Hitler was with
It's true. But do you think they could do something Germany-wide without the Führer? No, they can't.
Himmler.
Like into like Nazi rivalry is absolutely goddamn hilarious. Thrasher did a video on Willy Messerschmitt and
Yeah.
a couple of other people, and it's fucking funny. But the thing is, like you said, Germany-wide, really think old Adolf's not involved on this? Really think that? Really?
The only reason why Hitler is not the public face of this is risk minimization.
Yeah.
That is the only reason. Because if this went bad, he could have just gone out the next day and say he was disgusted. Right?
So I think it's a good point actually here to bring up Action T4, because Hitler did put his pen to paper on that. We actually have the document of Hitler signing off on Action T4, which is the euthanasia program.
Yep.
Euthanasia was extremely unpopular because, well, the Germans who initially supported the party of face-eating tigers got shocked when the tiger ate their faces and started killing their children and loved ones.
The 33% that actually voted for them. Yes.
Yeah, the 33% that actually voted for them. Yes. So with T4, Hitler was linked to that personally, and it went really badly and was very unpopular. And after that, that's why he pulls back. You don't see him directly linked to these horrific things. Stalin very much does the same thing in Ukraine with the Holodomor, except for the one instance where he flat out links himself to the order to close the borders, which is effectively what sets the genocide in motion. But there is always a level of put my underling between me and horrific event, just in case, to keep me in a safe position of power in case something bad happens.
Correct.
And Himmler began to receive reports from his Gestapo that Goebbels' propaganda offices were whipping up anti-Jewish demonstrations, and that he was ordering the police, who were meant to be under the control of Himmler, not to intervene. Himmler turned straight to the Fuhrer for further instructions, and he was ordered to protect Jewish lives and Jewish property.
That's a lie.
That
That is an outright
that is
lie.
a disgusting lie. That is a disgusting lie. And I think I know who he's quoting there. I think he's using David Irving as a source there. And if you don't know, David Irving is a convicted Holocaust denier. And Zoomer Historian is linked to David Irving. He has a little discount code that you can buy these little Holocaust denial books from David Irving if you want to.
Also the
Which
programs
you should. I mean, good kindling.
only in the public eye ended on the 10th and continued till the 15th. Just
Yes.
According to Himmler, it appeared as if this was the first Hitler had heard of such things when he told him. Trying to put this
let's just believe Himmler.
genie back in the bottle was never going to be an easy
Wait,
task,
pause.
however. After
Now he says here, according to Himmler, and he expects you to trust Himmler. In his video on Barbarossa, he explicitly says you can't trust Himmler, and then says you can trust Hitler by giving Hitler a quote. It's misdirection.
Because obviously speech person, Hitler speech person, not enough Hitler speech person. Yeah.
After all,
Good thing.
Goebbels held more sway on the public than anyone else except Hitler himself. One of the main issues was that the attempts to put down these demonstrations were only ever going to be...
Is he trying to construe this as a power grab by Goebbels?
I think so, maybe.
But
But he's already said it was the Jews' fault.
But also couldn't this would be the best thing he could do to get rid of Goebbels then as well.
Yeah.
Ever going to be half-hearted by anyone except those with an eye for foreign policy. Helping the Jews wasn't for the Jews' benefit, but for the Germans. If a medieval-style pogrom erupted in Germany, the nation that was being accused of mistreating Jews, then it would be the biggest hit to Germany's international reputation imaginable.
No,
On a personal level, disregarding...
Yeah, but they also already did not care.
Yeah, they didn't give a fuck at this point.
what outsiders
Oh
thought,
yeah. Pause. One fun thing about this, and Jackwood's just inspired me here. The man by the name of Jock Lewis. Jock Lewis is a fucking legend in history. He was married to a German woman, and witnessing this event made him break off his engagement because her family was pro it. And he was so disgusted that he went back to Britain and rejoined the British Army. Jock Lewis is one of the founding 3 members of the SAS. Kristallnacht directly caused the SAS.
Also, there was international disgust at this.
There was. Kaiser Wilhelm II said, for the first time in my life, I'm ashamed to be German.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't care about that man.
No one cares about him, but the conservative part of Europe did absolutely care what he had to say.
Of course, thousands of Germans who saw this as their chance to finally get out the Jews, and they relished the opportunity. They had been held back for years, and now they felt they were being allowed to act.
This would have been true if they weren't lied to, weren't provoked, weren't pushed by the media, weren't pushed by Goebbels, weren't being told this for years and years and years. Also, this makes it sound like it was all Germans.
Yeah.
It was mostly the SA and party members. So,
and that's a significant number of the population, but it's not all Germans by far. It's not even the majority.
Nope. At least not a plurality.
In fact, by 1 a.m. that same evening, the synagogue next to Hitler's hotel was on fire, and his adjutant was called to come and collect his belongings in case the fire spread. The attacks continued into the night, and Hitler barely got any sleep. Still into the early morning, he was demanding to know what was going on, and was demanding that party officials put a stop to it now. At 3 a.m., Rudolf Hess, Hitler's deputy, sent out a message to all the Gauleiters, quote, "On express orders issued at the highest level of all, there is to be no arson or the like, whatever, under any circumstances."
He's not wrong. There were orders, like this, kind of like this. There was an order to make sure to protect neighboring buildings. That's right.
Against Jewish businesses. End quote.
Who did he quote?
I don't remember. I believe it was quoting an official off the top of my head. I got distracted looking at something. On that though, the reason that he's saying this with so much confidence, so many people actually believe the bullshit he's saying here, hi Havoc, is because, quite frankly, he's intermixing tiny snippets of truth within the lie.
Yep.
And that is how you get the best propaganda. Yes, it is Lieutenant Havoc. This is how you get the best propaganda. You intermix a little bit of truth in with your lie because it builds a foundation which makes it believable. I have an hour-long video I'm editing at the moment about how Russia has done that extremely effectively over the last 40 years. But this is what Zoom Zooms does all the time. I think I'm going to use Zoom Zooms as his new nickname. Because he's like he reminds me of like a 4-year-old with like a twiddly hat in terms of his mental comprehension. But Zoom Zooms here likes to fill in the tiny little bit of truth with that lie to make you believe it, and that's what he's just done there. Like everything he said there, you can draw it back to a tiny bit of truth, but his reasoning onto why it happened is stunning, completely in a vacuum, and completely ignores everything else that happens in history and happens on either side of it, and then it's done and twisted in a way to make a point. I'm sure. Anything to add to that, Plano?
No, the only thing I will like add is it's wild to me how someone can look at the general known facts and just say no.
Yeah, it's nuts.
If you are like, you can have a sloppy argumentation like this when you just represent the majority opinion. In general, in sciences, if you're the minority opinion, you have the burden of proof, the burden of argument, and he doesn't do that. Like, the national press, after the assassination on the 8th of November, or 7th, on the 7th of November, on 8th, that was what the press said, that the Jews need to be hit the hardest. And what people also need to understand, this assassination stems from the fact that in the up to that point, in 38, the things the Nazis did to the Jews ramped up quickly. For example, they banned all Jewish doctors to work as doctors. And they banned Jews to be treated by non-Jewish doctors. So suddenly the Jews no longer have doctors, right? And this thing continues and continues and peaks into this. And then there's the speech of Goebbels, which just calls for the destruction of Jewish property. I don't know what his point is, because we know that the cabinet agreed to this. This is a plan. I can see that maybe there was some panic that the destruction of property would destruct neighboring properties, which is something that is just the result of riots, right? But I don't believe for a second, because we know it's not true, that Hitler tried to stop it, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
So let us just move on. It's just propaganda.
By the early hours of the next morning, Goebbels was getting the message that he was in fact making things worse, and he spent his
No. They always plan to stop it the next day. They got a night of free ride, effectively.
sleepless night. He spent his sleepless night on the telephone, trying to calm down the mess that he himself had created. It was too late, however, and dozens of Jews had died in a single evening. Foreign Minister Ribbentrop immediately informed Hitler of the ramifications abroad. In the eyes of the world, Germany was now willing to resort to physical violence in order to persecute their Jews. Beforehand, many were willing to tolerate, or even agreed with, the economic and social restrictions on Jews, but for many this was a step too far. How obvious of a mistake such a reaction was is evident in the people who condemned it. First and foremost, one of the most radical National Socialists of all, Heinrich Himmler, immediately condemned Goebbels for the obvious reason. Quote, "The order was given by the Propaganda Directorate, and I suspect that Goebbels, in his craving for power, which I noticed a long time ago, and also in his empty-headed..."
Yeah, there you need to understand that in the internal power structure, Goebbels shot past Himmler very quickly. So
and Himmler's always had.
Yeah.
On Himmler as well, he's always had this massive, basically tiny dick syndrome is the best way to put it. When it comes down to the others in the German Nazi Party, so like for example Himmler, Bormann, Himmler, Goebbels, the relationship he has with these people is effectively Why aren't I the special princess for Daddy Hitler? That's
He
basically
had
what
he
it
had
is. He's
the
just upset.
he controlled the police to a large degree.
Yeah.
So he could have stopped it himself if he had the power, which just shows that he did not. What this is an attempt of making it look like Goering is a risk
Occurring. Yeah.
for Hitler.
Yeah.
So this is an internal power play. The idea is I'll suck up more to Hitler, and I'll make it look like Goering, like Goebbels is at fault for making our foreign policy worse. But we all know what happened.
And
So,
again, Zoom is intertwining a tiny bit of truth in with the fact that there is internal power structure issues with the Nazi Party in with these
yes,
lies.
but he only puts it up in the other way. He says this is a play by Goebbels for power, so Hitler couldn't have known because there are internal power struggles, but he doesn't consider that the argument of Himmler could be flawed because of it. That is just like, you cannot you cannot do this. Something cannot be an important argument in the wrong context and be a non-argument in the correct context.
Started this action just at the time when the foreign political situation is very grave. When I asked the Führer about it, I had the impression that he did not know anything about these events, end quote. The blowback was immediate.
Which he, by the way, said to make him look better and the others worse.
Yes.
Chamberlain in England was completely discredited. He had carefully navigated through the rough foreign policy of the past year, only for it to blow back.
He tried to appease Hitler
in his face. He'd made Hitler out to be an honest man who could be reasoned with, and due to this, Europe was indeed
that was
spared
dumb
war
from
in
the beginning.
1938. Now, however,
Yes,
the
it was.
warmongers like Churchill had invaluable ammunition to throw at Hitler, to which Chamberlain would have no reply. How was Chamberlain to know that Hitler didn't order the pogrom, and in fact tried to put it down? Even if he did know, how on earth would he be able to convince
He agreed with Goebbels.
the world of that? The answer is, he couldn't. There is nuance to the situation, but the reality is that this isn't how the world works. No matter who started it, no matter who tried to put it down, the reality was that dozens of Jews were dead. David Irving puts the figure at 91, John Tolland puts it at 36. 814 shops have been destroyed, as had 171 homes. Most symbolically of all, perhaps, was that 191 synagogues had.
Do you ever hear someone quote David Irving seriously, and it's not to say that David Irving is a fuckwank? They are quoting neo-Nazi propaganda. That is all they are doing.
91 synagogues had been put to the torch. Goebbels would try to say in his defense to Hitler that such a brutal response would prevent further assassinations in the future. In 1936, Wilhelm Gustloff, the founder of the Swiss National Socialists, had been gunned down by a Jewish assassin in very similar circumstances. Now it had happened again. He reasoned that violence, which the Germans had not yet resorted to, must be responded to with violence. Goering told Hitler that he must punish the propaganda minister, but the Führer could only reply that Goebbels, despite his many faults, and no matter how out of favour he was at the moment, was invaluable. Goering testified at Nuremberg after the war, quote, "I was making every effort in connection with the 4-year plan to concentrate the entire economic field to the utmost. I had, in the course of speeches to the nation, been asking for every old toothpaste tube, every rusty nail, every bit of scrap metal to be collected and utilised. It would not be tolerated that a man who was not responsible for these things should upset my difficult economic tasks."
I know what he's
Goring, the meth addict and morphine addict, and famous truth teller. But continue. I know what you're about to say.
He also said this at the Nuremberg trials, where he tried not to be hanged.
Yeah.
But also, what he's referring to, right, is because they have the documents there, is to a meeting in the Reichsluftfahrtministerium, which is the Reichs Air Force Ministry.
Yes.
The Air Ministry, which is something countries at the time just had because it was new. The Nazi regimes met to a conference under the leadership of Goering and discussed the problems with the pogroms, and there was a symbolic 1 billion Reichsmark for the Jewish community. Criticized was not the general brutality against the Jews. What was criticized was the immense destruction of property, which is now property of the Reich.
Yes.
Also, they banned the Jews to use insurance for it, which they did. For a little known fact, most people don't know this. One of the biggest supporters of the Nazis, especially in the early stages, was. Oh no, I need to get his name right, but he was. One sec, I need to get his name right, and I want to get this right because people might want to read it.
Yeah, same. My head honestly hurts from smacking on the floor. I mean, this is why Fana was here. This is honestly just a way for me to platform him, because you know, maybe someone should ask a German what they think about all this stuff occasionally. It's fucking wild, right?
So it's the how's he called? Man, I'm Feldman. No, that's the historian who did this. I'm taking way too long. Why is this?
Oh, you poor bastard. Yeah, I see. I'm a pasty Anglo, obviously. Well, not British. I'm not British Anglo, but
Kurt Schmidt.
I can't imagine how mad this would make me as a German. I mean, I kind of know how mad this makes certain Germans because Fano, but God, yes.
Kurt Schmidt was one of them, but the Allianz Insurance heavily supported the Nazis. And what the Allianz Insurance obviously didn't want, the Nazis didn't want to make them mad because they somewhat depended on them, or had depended in the past, they earned their loyalty, is that the Jews now turn around and claim insurance. You know? Scissor hands, you're wrong. Alcohol is a solution.
You
like,
don't drink.
Chemically.
Oh, fuck off.
Hey,
You're proud of yourself for that, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Go on. Let's
destroying so many things of economic value on the one hand, and by causing so much disturbance in economic life on the other hand, end quote. Before talking about Hitler's reaction, he said that Hitler, quote, made some apologies for Goebbels, but on the whole, he agreed that such events were not to take place and must not be allowed to take place, end quote.
No, that's not what he said.
He's burning my fucking head. This is so stupid.
No. That's not what he said. What Hitler said is, I can find a quote, a source for that, but I think you might just believe me. Hitler said that in the future, Jewish property shall not be damaged there because it should belong in the end to the German government, or the Reich.
There it is. Yep.
In fact, it wasn't only Goering, but pretty much every leading Nazi who came out to condemn Goebbels. Volker Funk, Reich Minister of Economics, was heard on the phone by his wife to say, quote, are you crazy, Goebbels? To make such a mess of things, one has to be ashamed to be German. We are losing our whole prestige abroad. I am trying, day and night, to conserve the national wealth, and you throw it willy-nilly out of the window.
Yeah,
if this thing...
but none of them were mad because of the brutality or loss of human life. They were mad because the seizure of Jewish property was something that made a lot of Nazis very rich. This is not that. It's greed. It is greed and fight over what is a potential strategic error, which, well, from the Nazi perspective, you could see how this is a strategic error.
Does not stop immediately, you can have the whole filthy mess, end quote. Everyone seemed to understand the calamity that had now befallen Germany, except the propaganda minister, who continued to cope, saying he had done the right thing, when in fact he had doomed his country to international hatred. Hitler, however, instead of condemning Goebbels also, or even saying he had made a mistake, chose to side with him publicly.
Whoa!
Despite doing everything he could at the time to prevent...
Whoa! What? Sure, because that's the only thing they could do. Whoa, by the way, another great source. I'll say. Quality German source. The picture. So if you need pictures of things and you need a good source, Bildarchiv preußischer Kulturbesitz, banger. Let's
events.
You know,
that was as far as it went.
I just want to point out he hasn't actually discussed a single thing that really happened with Kristallnacht.
No, he did also not explain why it happened.
Yeah, he's basically just said it was the Jews' fault because one Jewish guy caused an assassination. So his argument is Kristallnacht happened because a Jewish guy shot a German guy.
To be
and that's his whole argument. There's nothing more.
For the potato guy, what is kind of true is that this sparked significant international outrage.
Yes, it did.
Especially because, wait, when were the Olympic Games?
There's 33, I think. No, wait, when was that? Is that 36? I need to check now.
36, yeah, 2 years before that.
Yeah,
Where
that was it.
where they tried to make themselves look a lot more like that was one of the reasons, and which is something to be very, very careful today about, where sports is being used to make yourself look reasonable. And that is something the Nazis achieved at the time, which, you know,
The Russians tried that. They bought a Formula One team, and then they got themselves the FIFA World Cup, and then they did the Winter Olympics.
yeah, sport washing.
Britain's
Yeah,
tried it.
no, but like this is where this idea comes from.
Yeah.
Also, Sentient Fetus, you're so right. Use the German archives.
Now he sided with Goebbels. A few days later, he would impose a collective 1 billion mark fine on the Jewish community to make up for the murder of Raf and for the resulting damage in Germany itself. It was as if Hitler knew his bridges were now burned, and instead of towing the fine line he had previously, he threw his hands up and decided to stop playing the international game in order to stand by his invaluable propaganda minister. Privately, however, he still raged against his actions. He said to Gertie Troost, the widow of his former architect Paul Troost,
Before he goes into this hearsay, how do you know what went on in Hitler's brain? You can't make a claim that specific.
Did you know politicians lie?
In what?
Paul Troost, quote, "It is terrible. They have destroyed everything for me like elephants in a china shop, and much worse. I had the great hope that I was about to come to an understanding with France, and now that," end quote. Foreign Minister Ribbentrop, the man most responsible for trying to keep the international reputation of Germany out of the gutter, said,
No,
quote,
it wasn't.
Wait. Is he trying to construe that World War II is actually to blame on the Jews because they shot a man in Paris?
Yes.
Genius!
That's the implication right now.
Have you heard what his gangs have done everywhere? These imbeciles have smashed up the Jewish shops, which have long been Aryan property anyhow. They've spoiled my game for me, end quote. One of the things that annoyed Hitler the most...
he kind of said it correctly. You know what he was mad about? Destruction of property. Have you heard it? Have you heard it?
Yeah, well, that.
He kind of skips over that, but like, I don't.
Just like, I hope my subscribers and followers on here understand how much pain you are physically putting me in making me listen to this shit.
To be fair, it's actually, I like from a propaganda perspective, this is actually quite interesting to look at. Because like he doesn't argue anything. It's just always this like idea of like portraying something.
This is why I have to be exceptionally thankful to all the gifted subs and all the subs I have now, but like fucking hell. This is what
You're 120 viewers.
I'm gonna have to start setting follower and sub goals if people want this shit to happen again.
Well, let's continue. We have 4 minutes left. Come on.
Most, as the backlash continued over the coming weeks, was the hypocrisy of the Western powers. The Brits and the French talked and talked and talked about the plight of the Jews, but in response to Kristallnacht, the Brits actually tightened restrictions on Jewish immigration to Palestine, as they knew there would now be a new influx. Goering said of Hitler's thoughts at the time, quote, "He wants to say to the other countries, why are you always talking about..."
He has a lot of...
I'd like to point out here...
Sorry, go on.
Britain's unwillingness to increase immigration to Palestine is not just because they don't like Jews. It's because the Palestine mandate at this point is a fucking mess. And it's a mess between effectively 2 terrorist organizations. Well, it's like 6, but 2 different base terrorist organizations. One being the Haganah and the Jewish terror organizations, which later become the IDF, and the other being the precursors of the PLO in Palestine. Both forces, it's effectively a 3-way war, clandestine. They both hate each other and they both hate the British. So if you are the British and you are sitting on a powder keg, do you really want to introduce more gunpowder to it? Like, it sounds horrific, and yeah, like maybe they should have just accepted them and dealt with the problem by stationing soldiers there to save lives. Like hindsight, we can say all that, but like at the time, I don't think it is appreciated just how much of a powder keg the Palestine Mandate was.
Also, I want to say he has a lot of pictures of Hitler.
It's disturbing how many pictures of Hitler he has. I wonder how many
He's
of them
also
are
like a
tributes.
random, right? This is not a propaganda picture. Like he looks small on this.
Yeah,
Like
he
this
does.
is
He
like
looks.
a personal picture.
I know, right? It's weird,
It's
right?
weird.
Always talking about the Jews. Take them, end quote.
More propaganda music.
Conclusion.
Yeah.
Wait. Let's guess what his conclusion is. The German people had a very normal and totally adequate reaction, and actually to blame is the Jewish reaction and the international media. And
Hitler was completely
actually,
innocent.
this resulted in the Second World War, and Hitler didn't actually know anything. It's Goebbels is to blame.
Yes, that's basically it. So Hitler's completely innocent. It's all Goebbels, and the Jews
It's a
caused this,
long ass
and
conclusion.
Winston Churchill was also behind it as well.
Oh, true. Winston Churchill also to blame.
Yeah. But none of it is Hitler's fault, basically. He's a victim, clearly.
To summarise, Herschel Greenspan killed an innocent man who in fact shared similar views to him. As a result,
No, he was not innocent. Can we? No. Okay, sorry. I'll in my video I'll put it like I know it's in German, but like he joined the SA in 33. No.
he indirectly made
That's when
things
you
far
had to
worse
be
for the
one.
Jews, but indirectly helped bring about the World War that would.
Oh god, he actually says this. He actually
called
says
it.
this brings him
The
out World
Jews
War
caused
II.
World War II because this guy, he's trying to make a
And he
Franz
didn't make
Ferdinand
it.
out
He
of
did not
fucking
make
Raab.
it worse for the Jews. It was already getting worse. The pogroms happened before he killed them. Like, sorry. Like, no, it was not always planned on that date, but they abused it. This is what the Nazis always did, right? They abuse situations very, very, very well. The situation for the Jews already got worse and worse and worse. Remember, his parents died at the Polish border of the assassin, right? The dude.
Despite
Like,
much
be honest.
bloodshed for his
Also, von Rad is a German. Like the assassin Herschel is a German too.
Yes, this is a German killing a German.
Which is something I always hate, is when people say, like, people sometimes seem to forget that Germans kill Germans.
Yeah, I want to point that out. The way he's portraying this is completely de-Germanizing the Jew. That's
Which
the point.
is something
He's
which
like, the
triggers
Jews are
me
not German,
in history books
yeah.
and in modern recognition as well. Like, something
Yeah, it
I
drives me
don't
nuts too.
like, for example, and I know I'll not make myself friends here, is the very weird, very central, since the 60s, in all remembrance of the Holocaust, Israel is in Germany, and the Prime Minister of Israel usually comes to Germany for it. What I will say is, I think that's weird because that makes it seem like Germans killed Israelis. Germans killed Germans and other Europeans. The issue was that they were Jewish. They were Jewish Germans. The base remembrance must be that people killed their neighbors. People did not kill foreigners.
You'll be very happy to know in English-speaking academia, there is a concerted push to talk about German Jews and refer to them as German Jews now.
Yeah, I think that's correct, because that's it. It's German on German crime. And also, like, by the way, Kommissar Madron, you're right. Nazis are famous opportunists. They are. They are really, really big on opportunism. They'll push their hate down because of incompetence of other parties and say that the only way to get rid of the problems today is to get rid of everyone different. But you don't want to be all the same. You don't want to live all the same. You want to be equal but not the same.
Yep.
his own people defeat Hitler. It's a bit of a crude comparison, but when George Floyd was killed in 2020...
No,
oh god. Oh my god.
In 2020, predominantly African Americans, but also others, set America on fire for days or even weeks.
Is he saying the Jews did it?
Wait. Let me try to think that. That means the police are the Jews.
Okay.
That doesn't work.
Okay.
Huh?
Thousands of shops were burned, and dozens of innocent, mostly white, civilians died. As a result, many Americans who were not racist before now became racist due to this outburst of violence. The same
Well,
Oh,
what?
yeah, but that's
What?
really dumb. That would just mean that people hated that the analogy doesn't work.
was the case in Germany. In response to the act of a single crazed Jew,
Oh, he loves
many
this photo.
Germans took it out on the entire Jewish community. As a result, the Germans turned people against their own cause, and by extension against them. Ambassador Dieckhoff, the German ambassador to the US, said that until Kristallnacht, most Americans were happy to ignore the anti-German
That's
propaganda.
actually true.
But now even German Americans were furious. What particularly strikes me is the fact that, with few exceptions, the respectable patriotic
was wrong.
circles, which are thoroughly anti-communist and, for the greater part, anti-Semitic in their outlook, also begin to turn away from us.
I'm just going to point out he is flat out saying, like, he's implying here that the BLM and the whole Black Lives Matter thing is like supported by the Jews.
No, you know what I like way more about this argument? That he's doing the same thing that the Nazis did after? Like that he looks up to, like Himmler and shit? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, the violence, yeah, but like, it was bad out of strategic reason. Like, I can't.
Turn away from us.
The liberals destroy themselves with their own argument. Yeah, it's fucking stupid.
The fact that the Jewish newspapers still write more excitedly than before is not surprising, but that men like Dewey, Hoover, and Hearst, and many others who have hitherto maintained a cooperative reserve and have even, to some extent, expressed sympathy towards Germany, are now publicly adopting so violent an attitude against her is a serious matter. In the general atmosphere of hate, the idea of boycotting German goods has now received new fuel, and trade negotiations cannot be considered at this moment.
It's also November 38.
Goebbels' actions had ripped to pieces any sympathy the world had for Germany. They had managed to barely play between the lines so far, and had actually garnered a lot of sympathy and understanding for their tough post-war position. But
no, they did not. In what parallel universe do you live? Germany having sympathy for their post-World War I situation? On what planet do you live?
Okay, I'm gonna set a rule: no more Zoomer historian unless I hit unless I get 100 unless I hit 100 subscribers. I've got 72. Unless I hit 100,
okay.
I'm not fucking doing this again.
Okay, great. Get the bag. But I want to clarify. He thinks that Germany had a general sympathetic outlook towards it during the 30s. No, they did not.
Yeah.
The French did not want to decrease like Germany had to basically collapse to a point where the French had to realize that they didn't get any reparations anymore.
Pretty much, yeah.
The only area of the world which had somewhat sympathetic outlooks towards Germany, well, there's two countries. There's Italy, obviously, and then there's the US. And the US had a part of the population that was pro-Germany. For, let's just say, the reasons that the KKK existed. Right? The problem is, there were way stronger racial sentiments against other groups than against the Jews in the US. And so, right? Like, I don't get this part.
Thank you, Mr.
Now they were effectively a
And we're not
pariah
like-
state, condemned by the world. Being pro-German in foreign nations was now a nearly impossible stance to take, as it was so deeply unpopular. The condemnation was almost unanimous. Even if Hitler wanted to take an anti-Goebbels line after this, none of it would have changed. He would lose one of his most important
No,
men
it
by
could
far,
have
his genius.
Of course that could have worked. Of course it could have. But they wouldn't have stood there well. It would have just been not as bad.
I think I'm getting allergic to bullshit.
Oh,
His propaganda
Thank you, Mr.
minister,
Scissorhands.
but he
Wow.
would gain nothing.
Thank you.
The world would
someone
still
wants
hate
to see
Germany.
you suffer.
Nothing he could say or do would change that now. The
Yeah, he
bridges
does.
were burned, and the Third Reich would have to face the world from this new position, no matter how unwinnable the situation seemed. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you made
No, I hated
this fun.
every second of it. No, I
Oh,
will
God,
not listen to the rest of this.
So from what we've gathered, the Jews are responsible for World War II, which we knew he would say that.
Pretty grass.
Fuck, my brain is. I lost brain cells doing that. I lost more brain cells watching that than I lost like in my O weeks at university.
This is one of the dumbest videos I've seen in my life. That says something.
What was his point?
That's the Okay, Chris, you're very, very stupid for a second now, okay? Be really stupid. Why did the Kristallnacht why did the Kristallnacht happen? After this video.
Kristallnacht happened. No, your point. Kristallnacht happened because a Jewish man shot someone.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, like it's. But even then, if you're extremely, extremely stupid,
you think
you're not going to listen to it because you'll fall asleep. I caught myself bored and getting distracted by my cat walking around.
You think he thinks World War I happened because Serbs are racist?
You know what? I reckon he actually believes that World War I happened because of Franz Ferdinand. I reckon he believes that's the only reason it started. Either that or it's the Jews. I mean, it's always Jews. Maybe it's Winston Churchill's fault. He was First Lord of the Admiralty at the time.
True, it's Winston Churchill's fault.
Or
that
Winston
must be
Churchill.
It. Must be Winston Churchill. You know what I find? Okay, one thing I actually find quite cool. I found someone who hates a politician in the past as much as I hate Bismarck.
Did you?
No. I mean, Zoomer historian seems to hate Churchill as much as I hate Bismarck.
Yeah, but he hates him for the wrong reason, so it doesn't make sense. I mean, I think he probably would call Winston Churchill a secret Jew. Let's be honest.
He would probably do that, yeah. Well, I think we've learned a lot today.
Have we?
I mean, I have learned a lot today. How do I put this? You know, I learned a lot about human beings when I became community manager on your Discord. In regards to the fact that, well...
Yeah, you went from someone full of life to a disappointed dad without even having any children.
Yeah, it's also like my belief for a long time was that people cannot be that stupid. Turns out I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think Zoomer Historian is that stupid. I think he's hateful.
I think he's getting money from a certain source that I can't put my finger on yet. But the thing is, it took us 2 hours, and we skipped over a lot that we could have sat there and picked apart and showed sources for. But it took us 2 hours for 20 minutes.
24,
like,
okay.
People are not... Yeah. Let's be real. Half of it was him going, let me be in reality. In reality. In reality.
Can I say that, in reality. Can I say that if I made a video about, like, if you just take the, like, acts he has, right? Like act 1, what happened, and so on, right? And I just make under the same things a video about this topic. My video will be 1:50 as well.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't say anything half the time. He
doesn't.
Quotes Nazi leadership.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Oh, no, have you heard that Nazis lie?
Did you know they're racist?
What was that quote he said at the start? I need to write that down.
Signs saying Jews not wanted.
No.
Oh god, I'm gonna mute you. I don't want to hear his voice.
I don't remember. I mean, I will have to watch most of the video anyway.
Common sense disclaimer.
Oh yes, the common sense disclaimer.
Let me write a note on my phone. Common.
Begin. A quick disclaimer. This is a video about both Adolf Hitler's life and also about the night
Adolf Hitler was racist.
Both.
Did you know that Adolf Hitler was racist? Well, that was the conclusion of the reaction to this video. We have learned that Nazis were racist. I mean, we didn't learn it from his video, but we came to the conclusion ourselves.
Pretty wild, right? Yeah.
Zoomer Historian says a lot of things that make no sense.
He didn't
has
really
not
say anything,
He
though.
did not say anything. Mostly, he apologized for things, and instead of critically regarding the critique of the Reichskristallnacht within the Nazi leadership, he just quoted Nazis and a quote of Hitler towards a angry widow. Great. So
I think you
that's the
commented
end
on
of that. Yay!